composed of myself and then a representative from Granger and a representative from DLZ Architects. And what this basically says is before voting to vote on any change order that increases the project's maximum cost, that would have to go before the building authority as well as the Board of Commissioners. Now, we haven't had any change orders that have done that. We've had change orders that we've either paid for with what we call buyout savings. So for example, our first bid package came in less than what we estimated. I think it was about $1 million less. And so there's $1 million to play with, if you said, so if there's a change order, we can take it out of that, or we could take it out of owner's contingency, which is part of that overall $32 million budget. But if there was any change order that would increase the maximum cost of this project, it has to come before the building authority and the county board. So but we wanted to formalize that.
Okay, makes sense to me. Questions on that, guys?
No, I guess I want to go back a little. If we add something to this agenda, must we have done that before we approved the agenda?
You are correct. We can go back before we vote on this. I'll show you what on this first.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a question.
Okay,
about this.
we'll go
Makes
back.
sense. At least we're headed in the good news in the right direction.
Correct. Any more questions on there? Roger, you good? All right. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, now let's go back to the approval of the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to add some to the agenda. I'd like to make a motion that we send a resolution to have the legislative branches look at the auto insurance items that people are not getting covered on. So
Okay.
I guess there's 41 or 43 counties that have done it. So
So just so you know, that is as a discussion item on the agenda.
You want to move to a motion?
I want to move to put it on the agenda.
It is for discussion.
Okay. I'd like to move it to the agenda so that we can vote on it.
Well, we can make a motion at that time.
We can vote.
Okay, that's fine. too.
Right, right.
Yep, okay.
Make a
Thanks
motion
for
at
that.
time.
Thanks for saying that.
No, that's not a thought.
No problem. We'll move on then. All right. Number 2. The motion is the purchasing card policy, and this is the first reading, is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners revised purchasing card policy for review and comment.
Supported.
Move.
Made and supported. Karen.
So this is the policy that we follow when you have a county credit card and you submit receipts. There's a minor change that's companion to the travel and meal policy, which is next. And it just says that if you, the big change is if you use the per diem, which is now an option under the travel and meal policy, if that moves forward, you cannot use your P card for that. Because you're reimbursed on a day rate and you're not buying those per meal charges. So you're reimbursed a single amount for a day. And then you don't submit receipts under per diem. So you so that no longer would be eligible to purchase with your P card.
Right, so it's keeping them from double dipping. No double dipping.
Double dipping and the idea is very different. So you just, it's not a per meal thing.
Right.
So if you go to a conference and let's say the per diem's $40 for the day, and I don't know, it varies, but
So you'd have
you would pay
$40.
40 out of your own pocket and then you would get reimbursed for that. And that would be for your whole day, whether you have 3 meals that day or you decide to skip a meal. But you wouldn't be using your P card to pay for that meal. You would use your own personal funds to pay for that meal and then get
And then-
reimbursed to per
okay.
diem.
Okay,
And you wouldn't, in that situation, you wouldn't need to keep the receipts,
Correct,
right? Because you get a per diem.
correct.
To spend.
Right.
but
Yes.
so, and Stephanie, then she books rooms. Is that a P card? Does
That
she
can
use it?
still be, yes.
Yep,
that
and
is
that'll be
still-
discussed on the next policy,
Okay.
but
okay,
the answer is yes.
Okay.
Good. Any more questions?
No.
All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose the same. Motion carried. Number 3, travel and meal policy. The motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners revised travel and meal policy for review and comment.
Supported.
We'll move.
So this is updating the travel policy and modernizing the travel and meal policy. It does change the meal reimbursement to a per diem daily amount that's published in GSA, and it's based on the city where you go. So there's still, if you're in a more expensive city like
PC.
Washington DC, or Traverse City is one of the more expensive ones in the state of Michigan, the allowance changes. But it's per diem is allowed with an overnight stay. So it's when you go to those conferences and you're overnight. Per the IRS, the first and last day are reimbursed at 75%. So if the per diem is $50 on your first day, you'll get 75% of that. Your last day, it'll be 75%. The days in between, it'll be 100% of the daily allowance. No receipts are required. Per diem reimbursement occurs with travel. So the county purchasing card can no longer be used for the purchase of food. There are a couple exceptions to that meal reimbursement. We have public safety officers transporting inmates for extradition. So we still will accept receipts for reimbursement when they travel, and they have to keep the person with them. And so they frequently stop. Or same day conferences and training when lunch is not provided. So we have some who travel maybe to Lansing or Big Rapids for a conference or a training, and lunch is not provided. So the county does reimburse that, but it will be with a receipt in those situations. We eliminated there was a requirement in the current policy that if you were traveling outside of the 48 contiguous states, that you needed to get the finance committee's approval to travel. So we updated that to say that you needed to have your directors or the elected officers' approval, not necessarily the finance committee. We updated the per diem, and the travel was probably the bigger items. We also said things like, we had things like if you paid for phone, like there was language that just doesn't apply anymore to hotel stays, that we removed and readjusted, tried to make it more cohesive and easier to read. I always felt like you had to read the whole policy to find one little answer, because your directions were not well organized. So we changed that to cover travel, your hotel stay, and then your meals. So really trying to streamline just the policy, just make it easier to read and follow.
So just to follow up on Al's question, so you can use a P card for the registration costs for a conference or seminar, for the airfare if you have to fly there, and for the hotel.
Mhm.
That would still come off the P
Oh,
card.
Okay.
So you're not having to use your own money and get reimbursed for that.
Mhm.
That really where we're talking about that is mostly the meals.
So that's what my question was gonna be, that include the lodging.
Yes,
The lodging would be
On the
not
P
per
card.
diem.
and
Yep.
your registration.
The
lodging is-
It goes on the P card.
The lodging is not on a per diem.
So what happens, you're in DC for a day or for a conference, but your lunch is provided, but you need to buy your breakfast and your dinner.
So the GSA rates, when they publish them by meal, so you would subtract out your lunch, the value of the lunch per the GSA, and your per diem amount.
The General Services Administration.
Yes. Thank you.
What's up, Jen?
General Services Administration, it's a federal agency.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
Sorry.
just making sure.
Yeah, so the lunch, you'd subtract that out. So if it was $50 and lunch was 15, then you'd have 35 for your breakfast and your dinner.
Right. Which sounds a little light for DC.
I don't, the 50 is not,
Add up.
50
I know, okay.
is not the amount. I was doing
All right,
stuff,
you were
something that I
just
could
using
do
it
in my
as an
head.
example.
Good, guys.
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Yep.
All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
All the same. Thank you. Motion number 4. Before is Ottawa Sands Phase 1 construction, and the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners agreement with Apex Contractors for the Ottawa Sands Phase 1 construction project for a total contract amount of $3,539,000.
Come over.
Or
Want a little explanation?
Yep.
So most of you know, Ottawa County Parks received a large grant from the Idema Foundation to implement improvements at Ottawa Sands. And so this is the first piece of those improvements, which includes new entrance drive, utilities, which is pretty hefty expense, and then a portion of the campground that's part of the master plan. So we're eager to get started, and so this is a good contractor. We feel it's about as good as we can do in this bidding environment. It did require some, I think part of the motion is to move some things around in the CIP plan. But it all seems to work well, so we can proceed.
when do we start?
Well, you would approve this on November 22, so it could start as soon as December.
Oh,
Yeah. They're gonna try to work through the winter as much as they can.
okay.
That's good.
All right.
All in favor, so we say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Number 5, establish park capital project, Ottawa Sands wetland restoration to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners an amendment to the capital improvement plan by adding Ottawa Sands Phase 1 wetland restoration.
You want to make that motion?
I make a motion to.
Okay, and I'll support it, because otherwise it's gonna look like I made all the motions and you supported it.
No,
It doesn't really matter, Roger, anymore.
Okay, all right.
She's pulling up a couple slides so you can have a visualization of what I'm talking about. Okay, for those of you that have been obviously to Ottawa Sands, you know this lake is stunning, but unfortunately it is very unhealthy and non-natural because it was a sand mine, and therefore it is not really a sustainable fish population at this point, which we really hope to have this as a great fisheries destination. And in addition to that, we have quite a lack of habitat for other wildlife, including frogs, birds, et cetera. So we worked with Great Lakes Audubon. It's a chapter of National Audubon to write a grant through the National Fish and Wildlife Service. And it's the Sustain Our Great Lakes grant. So we received they received $400,000 and we're a sub-awardee of that grant. And that grant will go to, like originally when we bid it, it was actually much less than this, but as the contracts came in, as the bids came in, we were able to do a lot more than what we originally had intended. So we are now looking at being able to naturalize 3,300 linear feet of shoreline, and that's through grading. So again, softening those shorelines so they're not steep grades. And then planting them with wetland plants, because right now, as you can see in the pictures, it just looks like a beach. Doesn't look like a wetland at this point. We also want to be able to do it so that it's in high water and low water, because this area does fluctuate quite a bit. And so wanting to always make sure we have habitat for wildlife, regardless of what Lake Michigan levels are. And we also want to increase and improve the littoral zone. So this is a really important area. Right now we have because it's a clear water, we have great littoral zone. That's the submergent plants in particular. We have a great, but we do not have those plants that come out of the water, the things that you're used to, like cattails and other things that are really important to wildlife. And so we're going to be enhancing the littoral zone so that we have some spawning habitat and also some areas for fish to be able to live. And the most important part for our grantors' perspective is we're also going to be increasing habitat for our what we call secretive marsh birds. This is a group of birds that are in steep decline throughout the United States. And so that's the reason why they stepped up to write this grant for us. In addition to helping creating the shoreline, the secretive marsh birds also are going to utilize a area that had been a wetland that had gotten filled in as part of the mining process when they closed the mine. So right now it looks like this, and this is what it will look like. So those, again, those of you who've been to Kitchelinquist Dunes, that's what we're trying to replicate there. It had been there, they filled it in, and we just want to bring it back. hopefully most of you know Dan O'Keefe, and he's been out there doing the studies to show that the fish population, although we have very large fish, they're not able to be reproducing. And the numbers are very strange. And so I want to just quickly explain those. Again, when we submitted for the grant, we had thought the project would cost far more than what it came in as. And so we were receiving 400, we were thinking about 500,000. We received 400,000, but we have to match that money with other things, specifically a DNR grant. Because the bids came in low, those numbers are going to flex. As long as we keep a 1-to-1 match between the DNR grant and the Audubon grant, the SOGL grant, we will be within this. So right now, the project costs are at 441,714. Those will likely go up again because we have a lot more money in the Audubon grant, and also this DNR grant that we're in the process of applying for. And so the only requirements, the only thing that we're obligated to is applying for a DNR grant. Right now, we only need 100,000, but we can go upwards of 150,000, which the DNR are very excited about this project and already have it on their list of state projects, a very short list of projects that they already have budgeted for. And then Stearns Creek North Addition, which we already have, staff and volunteer times, which we're already doing and have, and then equipment we've already purchased. Any questions?
So there's a small wetland area that's kind of on the southwest, maybe more west area, but it's very small. Is that where you're thinking that
Yes.
you could increase the size of the wetland?
Yes, and that was only wet at the time because of the really high lake levels. And so again, we're going to build it so that it will have times in which it'll be, very small, but then times in which it's going to be very large. So right now it's only wet when we have those very high lake levels.
Are you, so the park doesn't include the SAG area, correct?
We do.
Does it?
We do have a portion of the SAG. Yes, that's actually the highest quality section at this point.
But are your plans to do something with the SAG area also to create more of a natural area there as well?
That's actually, we had an assessment done by a company called Applied Ecological Services, and that came out as the highest quality area and really needing very little. It's pretty good. One of the big problems with the lake is the fact that it doesn't have vegetation, but it also doesn't have coarse woody debris, so down trees. And the SAG has both of those. It has a lot of vegetation. It actually has just the right amount of nutrients. The only thing we have to do there is remove invasives, and we've been doing that. So we've already removed shoreline invasives such as honeysuckle. But one of the things that's a big problem right now in all of the mouth of the Grand is a new invasive called European frogbit. And that is coming in on the boats, and we're working with the DNR, our local SISMA, Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, and the Gun Lake Tribe.
Okay, the water at Hawthorne Park and this water. What's the difference and why they got fish in both of them, but you're still not sustainable? So how does that happen? I mean,
It's a great question. It's very simple question or very simple answer. This had been a dune.
okay,
So we took a dune and we just removed sand. And so it's brand new. It's kind of like a bathtub. So whereas Hawthorne Pond has been there for hundreds, if not thousands of years, getting nutrients from the surrounding landscape, this has almost what we call oligotrophic, which means it has very few nutrients. And the nutrients are what you need to create for the plants and the other wildlife to survive. The other thing that it's missing is, again, when you have a natural lake, you have a grade, a small low grade, and that creates escape places for small fish to be able to escape. So your fish, not only your young bass, but also the small fish that the bass feed on. And so because our slope was so steep, and there's no woody debris for them to hide within. We do not have very many small fish for the big fish to feed upon. So our fish that we have there are large because they are old, but they're very skinny. They're emaciated because there's not this place for them to reproduce, for their young to hide, and then also for their food to be able to survive. So you need to be able to have their food to be able to reproduce as well. So we're creating that slope, and then we're creating hiding places, and we're creating food for them.
Thank you.
Will that being that kind of sand with no nutrients in, is it gonna be hard to?
It is, and it's never going to be Hawthorne Pond. It's just not, it's not what we could, again, and actually the neat thing about this is oligotrophic lakes, these nutrient poor lakes are pretty rare in Michigan now because we put turf around it and we put fertilizer in them. And so this is a pretty unique ecosystem, and we had some high hopes for that, but they didn't transpire. But so one of the main things that we have to do is put coarse woody debris in there, because if we put in down trees, that's instantaneously infusing nutrients into the system. But also the vegetation that we're planting and bringing in, it'll photosynthesize, and then as it dies and decomposes, it'll be adding nutrients into the system.
So we actually throw bark along the edge?
Yes, we're dumping a bunch of dead trees in there.
Why don't you bring your yard?
Yeah. Maybe not. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing.
All right,
All in favor, say by saying aye.
yes,
Aye.
aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Melanie. Fund number 6. Out of the Sands kayak launch. Motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a resolution approving the Michigan Office of the Great Lakes Coastal Zone Management CZM program grant application in the amount of $100,000 to assist with the construction of a universal accessible kayak launch at Ottawa Sands County Park.
So moved.
Second,
All right, you can see we're trying to be pretty active at Ottawa Sands, right? We're trying to implement the master plan as well as we can. So yes, we had a kayak launch with associated support facilities, parking, and those kind of things. In the master plan, we've been trying to find a way to get that funded. We actually applied for the same grant last year where, you know, we were unsuccessful, which actually surprised us a little bit because we've had good success funding these kayak launches through this program. So they said, try it again. So we're going to try it again. So yeah, it's a $200,000 project, 50% grant. And we'll see if we are successful this time. If not, we'll find another way to do it, but it's a good program, and extra $100,000 never hurts anything. So that's it.
Much black and white. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thanks, Kirk. Discussion items, legislative issues, John.
Probably know a lot more. We're having our quarterly legislative meeting on Thursday, so I'll be touching base with Bob DeVries between now and then to talk about what we can expect in the lame duck. I mean, we haven't had really any activity since last month because they were all out campaigning. So you're not going to see really anything different here. But we are having a quarterly legislative meeting Thursday. And I'll be, like I said, I'll be touching base with Bob DeVries to kind of usually with lame duck, we're trying to play defense more than offense, and hopefully nothing will we'll go through that will necessarily hurt us. Again, right now with a divided government, you know, the legislature is still under Republican control till the end of the year, and a Democratic governor. That can make things a little bit harder, but you know, they're not above doing horse trading either. So
what time is that meeting Thursday?
Second.
10 o'clock.
Yep. No, I have it 11 o'clock. This Thursday at 11 a.m.
Yep, 11 a.m.
So, but yeah, there's been really very little legislative activity because most of this last month was campaigning. So
I
That can be interesting.
I talked to Roger Monday, and he said he is a little worried about the, you know, the money was there for the plant, Coopersville and everything, and now it's just, he He said, it's really not moving fast. He said, I really, really want to try to get that done for the end of the year. I'm like, yeah, I can see that. Mhm.
That's one of the priorities we'll be discussing on Thursday, is that $60 million SOAR funding for that Coopersville wastewater.
Right,
Well, for
Project
the pipeline, actually.
yeah, pipeline to go to Muskegon, yeah, yep. That's important, especially for that community out there.
It's important for Muskegon too.
Yeah, it's
It's probably as much or more.
for Coopersville, I mean, because they're having some significant issues with their plant that will need significant upgrades. Continental Dairy Facility and Fairlife really cannot expand. In fact, they're violating their permit by how much they're sending. And then, but you're right, Roger, I know Muskegon would like this because their plant is currently underutilized and I
It's
can tell you,
costing them.
yeah, those fixed costs don't go away. And yet
Yeah,
when the paper bill went away, their revenue went down. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of parties that will benefit from
Yeah.
this. So,
No, at the same time, didn't Howland Township get some, was it 10 million? For their waste treatment plant going to the Howland?
yeah, 10 or 8 mil, something like
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah.
Is that in limbo too?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
He thinks this will go through, but he says it's gotta be
Soon.
pushed before the end of the year.
And again, between the primaries and the general election, I think there were 2 or 3 legislative days. I mean,
Yeah,
it just,
I know.
it's
I
been
know.
all
I know.
campaigning, so I think you'll see that pick up between now and the end of the year.
We hope so, huh? Yeah.
And I think you'll get some bipartisan, I mean, I'm sure the legislators in Muskegon County are
Yeah.
just as supportive of this as we are,
Mhm.
so.
It's true. Good. Any other questions on the legislative?
nope,
All right,
go ahead and make your motion.
we'll move on to number 2. Advisable care resolution request for automobile no fault law. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's discuss it.
Go ahead and make your motion, Al.
I'd like to make a motion that we put it on the agenda, vote on it to send a resolution to the legislative branch like the other 41 or 43 counties have done already.
All right, I'll second that just to get it on.
Motion made, supported, chat.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't, and I know Doug's weighed in on this as well. I mean, this doesn't really have anything to do with us. And, you know, our board rules say that we stay out of things that are outside of our lane. I will say, so from a rule point of view, this really goes against what we're trying to do. And if we do take this up, it does kind of open up the floodgates, if you will, for any other issue to come before you. The other thing from a practical point of view, and I think Bob Breeze mentioned this, it was either at a committee or a board meeting, and
They don't even look at them.
they don't even
Oh, no.
look at them. And in this particular case, the political reality is the current House Speaker was the one that put this auto
That's right.
reform together, and he's not changing it now. Could it change in the next session?
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's right.
But not this session. And
You know, but Doug says it doesn't affect us. Well, there could be people in our county that affected them. So then to say that it doesn't affect us, yes, it does.
well,
You know-
I don't know if we know enough. I know I don't. If we know enough about this issue, we're getting one side of it.
Well, the way I understood it, if someone had care. Because they got in an accident, okay, and they were given that care. Their argument is, wait a minute, you took that care away. I paid my insurance for that care. Now, they should have had that all existing patients would be covered. And from this date on, any new ones were not covered. But they stopped it, boom, for everyone. So I understand where they're coming from. If I paid insurance and then all of a sudden says, oh no, that part ain't covered anyway. Wait a minute, I paid for that.
And you may be right, you may be wrong. I don't know,
No.
but it doesn't have anything to do with the county. And that's why we're saying, we're not taking a position. Let's stay neutral, not act on it.
I think sometimes we close ourselves in too tight on that policy we made about what we can and can't do as far as resolutions. I think that's hurt us in some ways in the past, so. I think that's something we can look at, but
Yep.
we'll let the
Yeah.
next board.
Let's
look at
vote
that.
to pass it on to the board and let them decide.
All right, we have a
But
motion. on the floor.
we get to vote on it at the board, right?
Yeah,
And you'll make a resolution like we have, like the counties have. Is that what you wanted, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
any more discussion?
Oh,
All in favor, say by saying aye.
aye.
All right, moved it on. We'll go to closed session to discuss. To go into closed session for the purpose of discussing property acquisition pursuant to
So
a section 8D.
There's a second.
Is
I moved it.
there a roll call, please?
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Super. Are we off, Madison?
Okay, turn us off.
Roger, you're gonna make a motion, we get my closed session to where these two.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Second,
Motion made and supported for both of these.
Yes.
All right,
yeah,
all in favor, said by saying aye.
aye.
Good. Is that good enough for you, Rachel?
Sure.
You bet.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Is there a
this-
motion to adjourn?
Nope, nope, there's any motion for public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Is
you've
there
been
any,
blowing that people off, Bill.
I forgot the first one, didn't I? Well, I can't say that. We were having, I
There was no one here.
technical, anything, anybody on there, Madison, that,
Well, no, we only do in person at committee meetings for public comment. So I just wanted you to make sure you address public comment, even though there's no one in the room.
I got it, John. Seeing there's no public comment, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion,
All right. All in favor, say by saying aye.
aye.
Thank you, we're adjourned.